and gentlemen, welcome to episode 68 of Armchair Producers. I'm one of your hosts, George Terrence, surrounded by Plastic Man and Castle in the Sky, produced by Studio Ghibli, alongside the ever-present Mr. Travis Croft, the best beard in the business. How are you, my good man?
I am fine and dandy, and I haven't won the World Beard Championships yet. They have been kind of struggling this year to put on hold a little bit with the old COVID-19. But
of course,
everyone's plans were affected, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's cold and miserable in Kinglake. Is it any better down in the city?
I don't know. I haven't been outside.
Outside is for the crazy people.
Pretty much. It's living in the inner city. I doubt it. I doubt it is the short answer. I mean, it's like House on Haunted Hill up in your neighborhood this time of year.
I don't know what you're. Yeah, you're totally right.
Seriously, if you want to make a horror film, if there were enough castles up there, it would be a brilliant place to film one.
I think that there is definitely scope for making a really fucking cool, just like low budget, trauma style horror movie up here.
You really need a hook, though. You need a Toxic Avenger, a surf Nazi, a killer tomato.
There could be the Toxic King Lakian.
The dog that couldn't go upstairs. Woo!
That was Archimedes up until very recently. All right, shall we crack on with our review of the 80s? It seems like we've got a bit of a season going.
Yeah, I'm kind of liking. I don't think anyone's actually noticed, but we're trying to sort of leap from film to film, like jump puddles. So we started with Streets of Fire because someone recommended it to you.
Well, it just kept on kind of coming up in.
Michael Paré followed Michael Paré into the Philadelphia Experiment. We followed time travel into the Final Countdown, and we've now followed almost homoerotic energy and filming of U.S. military equipment into the Debbie Does Dallas of U.S. military recruitment films. Top Gun, 1986 classic. Top Gun. I think it has to be considered a classic. It was the highest grossing film of the year. It's extraordinarily fondly remembered, and we have
that is very true.
4 years later, we have a sequel coming out at some point this year, next year. Who knows what goes on with all that nonsense. But directed by, I won't say the late, but not great, Tony Scott, the very much the Daniel Baldwin of the Scott brothers.
Wait, he's dead?
Yeah, I'm sure Tony Scott committed suicide a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, he jumped off a bridge.
Well, fuck me sideways. Don't actually
he died in 2012.
Wow, I did not know that.
Now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was suicide. There's certainly, I'm going to leave that one alone. But yes, as I was saying, with Daniel Baldwin to Ridley's Alec.
I think that's being pretty harsh, man. He had
come on. I mean, he had his moments, but like
he was not anywhere near as good as Ridley Scott. But come on, he made fun movies, man.
No, sorry, he made schlock. Best known for Domino, Shithouse, Unstoppable, Shithouse.
No, those are not
memorable because it was written by Quentin
Those
Tarantino.
movies are not what Tony Scott is fucking known for. Those are producer things at the best. He did
Domino, I'm not mistaken.
He did Man on Fire, for fuck's sake, which is awesome. It's a great action movie.
It was okay.
Spy Game, which is really good.
Spy Game was garbage. Enemy of the State, The Fan, Crimson Tide.
No.
True Romance. The Last Boy Scout was memorable because it was Shane Black. Days of Fun.
Beverly Hills 2 was
Beverly Hills Cop 2 was the worst.
3 was the worst. See that fucking awful.
4 was the worst. Isn't there 4?
No, 4? I think there's only 3. I think Brett Ratner was
maybe I'm thinking of it. Tony Scott was not a good director, and this is a film that demonstrates exactly why he's not a good director. He has no interest in character. So I think I should be upfront and say, it's the first time for regular listeners who might remember, I mentioned this last week. I'd never seen this film from end to end.
Yeah.
I've seen bits of it. And this was a real struggle to get through. This is 100 minutes of absolute, complete nutter tripe. This film sucks.
It's just a sequence of kind of weird music videos.
Music videos is exactly what it feels like. It's like a Michael Bay film in the sense, but even Michael Bay films seem to have a little bit more connective tissue than this.
And there's like the music. Kenny Loggins knocks it out of the park with the stuff like Danger Zone. When that first came on, it's like, fuck yeah, Danger Zone, it's a classic. And it was sort of like, oh yeah, and the jet's going off, and then you very quickly realize, oh wait, this is like the proto pod racer sequence from Star Wars, where they're just kind of reusing the same stuff again and again, thinking they're going to get the same buzz out of it. And every single time Danger Zone comes back on, it's like, oh yeah, okay.
It's a bit like, it's almost like they kind of had a rough idea, and this is based on a magazine article written for some obscure magazine, I believe, about the actual Top Gun school, which is a real school where they send real pilots to shoot people out of the air. And it's almost like they've kind of roughly come up with a vague idea of we wanted to make a film about fighter pilots going to a fighter pilot school.
Yep.
And it's almost like they've gone to a well and gone, hey, Kenny Loggins and, Kim Khan. I think it was Kim Khan who had the other song. Yes. We need some stuff for this. And they've come away with the rights to Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away. I think it was whoever sang that song. Two, it must be noted, of the most memorable songs from films in the 80s. Incredibly memorable, iconic songs. I don't know if they won an Academy Award. They probably should have, because they're great songs. But it's almost like they've gone, okay, and when they've gone to actually edit it all together, someone's gone, you know what? The best shit we've got are those two songs.
Yeah.
And they've gone, okay, just use them as much as possible. And the astounding amount that they've actually... There are very few films that I can recall where they've had those songs are used in exactly the same way throughout the film.
Yeah.
I think the film, I'm going to go obscure here. There's a film made in the early 2000s called About a Boy. Hugh Grant. It's a great film. They got an artist named the Badly Drawn Boy to do the soundtrack, and he wrote a great song for it called Something to Talk About. Mm-hmm. And the tune from that song is used as a theme throughout the film.
Yes.
But they don't just use the song. That song becomes almost the theme for the movie, or
it mutates.
Man on the Moon, the Miles Forman film, had that R.E.M. song, Man on the Moon.
Yeah.
And they used that as almost, again, the theme of the connective tissue of the film was that song. But they just didn't go, fuck it, play Man on the Moon again. Like in multiple scenes. So it almost felt like we were flipping between, when we had Danger Zone when they were flying the jets, and we had Take My Breath Away anytime Kelly McGillis was on screen.
Yeah.
This was bizarre. This is truly astonishing that a film is this fondly remembered. It has a 6.9 on IMDb.
Yeah.
Has a 50 Metascore, which is a little surprising that it's that high, because I thought it was awful. But, that's probably a little bit more closer to what I was thinking as being...
You know what really surprised me about watching this movie? Because it's been a while since I've watched this movie again. After watching The Final Countdown, the cinematography of the air carrier for that movie, it was just so much cleaner and crisper than what was actually in this one. And I understand a lot of the logistics of that. There was so much more in-air kind of fighter combat stuff going on, but even the elements where they are taking off in the Gulf off of the aircraft, it's like it's and this came out The Final Countdown or something like that, and it's like, okay,
I feel like it's more stylized, where you could have almost fit the footage they shot for Final Countdown. You could have almost slotted it into a Discovery Channel special about life on an aircraft carrier. this is the guys putting up the wedding thing for when the ropes fail, and then this is them hanging out in the library and playing board games and shit,
that's
and having dinner. It was almost shot documentary style for the Navy for that. But this film, it was far more stylized. It felt, we talked about it at the start. We hinted at it. This film did have permission from the Navy. It was a cooperation from the Navy. And as we talked about last week, when you do that, they get a say over what goes into the film.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like this was more stylized to look. It felt more like a commercial.
Yeah, it had that kind of poppy, the cutting. It was really celebratory throughout the whole thing. Even the elements where kind of Goose gets splattered and all that stuff. The whole thing, every single element of it is borderline romanticizing every element of it to a point where it's like a music video, which obviously Tony Scott had a big history in music video. So it kind of makes a lot of sense in that way. And if they are kind of trying to get that military backing, so like, yeah, make us look like a fucking rock video. That sounds great to me.
And it's probably of its time a little bit in the mid-'80s, and that kind of thing started to become a little bit more what was in style. I mean, but the story you can read online is that when they released the home video, they offered to put a Navy commercial at the start of a VCR to basically pay some of the bills. They had to pay the Navy for the privilege of using their shit and help pay for it. They were going to say, hey, we'll put a commercial at the front of our video. And Navy's gone, we don't think that's necessary. Your film is all the commercial we need.
Yep.
Apparently, you can also read that, again, like we talked about with Final Countdown last week, they did set up recruiting booths in cinemas to sort of grab hyped up guys coming out of a film. Girls as well, maybe. That
year they did see a huge boost on the amount of people who were
tremendously successful.
Yeah.
So in that, from that sense, I guess it was probably a very decent investment of time and effort from the Navy. As a piece of cinema, or as a piece of artwork, it's utter garbage.
Gosh.
I mean, so I guess for those who haven't seen it, if you are keen on watching the film at some point, if you have never seen Top Gun, you're like, I'm looking forward to the sequel. I want to see what the original is about. So the second one makes sense. I don't think that will be a problem at all. But anyway, this film basically follows the story of Tom Cruise's character, who is, I don't even know, what's his real name? Ethan? I don't know. Maverick.
Yeah, he's just named as Maverick.
Maverick, who is a fighter pilot.
Yep.
And is recruited to take part in the Navy's Top Gun school. They've learned that they've basically figured out that after World War II, American pilots have sort of lost their skills in dogfighting.
Yeah.
And hence the Top Gun school is about training pilots to become better at dogfighting. He and his wingman, played by Anthony Edwards, the Goose, go to this flight school. And then they take lessons on how to fly a plane. And then they have a rivalry with Val Kilmer's other pilot, Iceman, and a random assortment of other people who aren't anywhere near as memorable.
And essentially, life lessons are apparently learnt.
There is an underlying subplot with Tom Cruise falling in love. Is that what they call it these days? I don't know what the fuck they thought they were doing. Basically lusting after the character played by Kelly McGillis, who it just happens to turn out is some sort of highbrow civilian contractor who works at the Pentagon, who he has to sort of deal with it, who actually works for the US Navy as well. And so he sees her at work giving them lectures about Russian jets. Yeah. And at the same time, he's trying to woo her in his personal life. And I think successfully does woo her. And I'm making this sound, I mean, you might think, why are you making this sound? You know, that's because that story and stilted. There's no real connective tissue between them. Like, I feel like Tony Scott's main focus was all on the cool action, which is perfectly consistent with everything
Yeah.
Tony Scott did as a director. He was not interested in characters or story. He was interested in visuals. He was the Michael Bay of his day. Although even then, I say he's a terrible filmmaker. He's not that bad. And so I feel like the love story was really only just sort of there to sort of move the character along and to sort of slow it down a little bit, have something to shoot in between the scenes with the jet doing shit. Eventually, there's some sort of conflict they're involved in somewhere.
Well, that's it. There is so much stuff that just happens for literally no reason. Like Tom Cruise's character, Maverick, he wasn't the first choice to go to Top Gun. He got there by the fact that
the other
pilot kind of freaked out and said, no, I actually have a family and I have a reason to live, so fuck you all. I'm going to go and live with them, which is totally understandable. There is no redemptive arc for Tom Cruise's character in this movie. None.
He's not very likable.
No, he's not. There's a loose subplot about, he acts the way that he does. He's the Maverick because of what happened with his dad. But that is so casually brought up.
Sort of really glossed over. It's like 2/3 of the way through the film. It's a couple of lines of dialogue.
The irony of this whole thing is there is more character development in the parody Hot Shots than there is in this.
Yeah. Hot Shots is a better film than this.
Yes.
Apart from being very funny.
Yeah.
It's actually a better story.
Yeah. There's action in this, as you said. It kind of builds up to this. We've got the first action sequence where they're going up against the MiGs, and we're like, there's constantly this expectation that we should know how dangerous the MiGs are. But the fact that they are consistently outmaneuvered in the beginning and the end of the movie is like, well, how are they actually that bad? Why are they so scary to go up against? What makes them? They never bother actually explaining that. And in those two sequences, I found that action so fucking boring.
It really wasn't very exciting. It's difficult to tell exactly what's going on. There's a bunch of Navy jargon talking to each other. It's supposed maybe in 1986 that sounded cool. I will get to that, Karen. That is coming. There is news coming. Momentous news on the podcast coming, so stay tuned on that one. After the Top Guns. But you're right. It's shot very in a very vanilla style. You can't. There's no the shots are so generic. It's like it's difficult to tell. Actually, hang on. Which jet is this one?
Yeah. And even with the dialogue, you say, it's the kind of Navy pilot jargon. It's like, no, that's canned jargon. Like, so much of it is just bad. It's like, there's bad guys. Yeah, I thought so. I'm getting hard. What?
Yeah, I got that line as well. Getting a hard on.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. I would imagine. If you were a jet fighter pilot, you might find it's that sort of blasé attitude about it a little insulting, because there's an excellent chance you're not. If you were going, I think there's essentially fighting the Russians, I think, or Russian jets, because they are MiGs. MiGs were Russian jets.
I don't know if they're Russian. I think that it's part of the whole Gulf War.
This is pre-Gulf. This is 5 years before the Gulf War. So the only people that would have been bombing in the mid-'80s would have been the Libyans. And that would have made sense
after the fucking plutonium, man.
Libyans. But they, I'm guessing maybe it was them, and they might have been flying Russian jets in the mid-'80s. But if there was a genuine dogfight between proper Soviet pilots and American pilots, there was an excellent chance you wouldn't come away from it alive, because that would be, they would be very difficult to blow out of the air like that. The other part that always makes me wonder is they just shot down 4 jets.
Yep. From
the other, whoever it was. Yep. Maybe they were Soviets. They did have red stars on them, I think. But
it doesn't, who knows? It doesn't really make. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But I guess the thing that was going through my head was what happens now? You just shot down 4 enemy jets. That doesn't just happen.
You won a successful thing that the enemy would never admit happened. So
and it's on the front page of a paper at the end of the game.
Yeah,
of the film.
But the enemy will never admit it, and they say the enemy. They don't put a name on the enemy at all. They just like, you don't need to know that. That's been retconned out.
I know attention to the man behind the curtain. That was a strange one for me. It's like I personally, maybe it's just me, but I think I found the the cell from the final countdown far more appealing to me than I would have Top Gun. I mean, I don't think either film would have made me want to join the Navy, but it looked like a load of bullshit to me. Like, maybe it's my 2020 cynical vision to go, of course the Navy are going to make themselves look super fucking cool. And they're flying. The vast majority of people joining the Navy aren't getting anywhere near flying a jet.
Do they make it look cool in Top Gun, though? Because, to me, everyone in that fucking school is a dick. They are arrogant cunts. Excuse me.
I would agree. They're not likable people.
None of them are. Like they're kind of setting up Iceman to be this cool, calculated dude who's sort of like, he is the safest guy. And so like, well, if he was the safest guy, he would consider the mental state of the pilots as well and not try and freak out the people on his team by being such an asshole.
I mean, it's basically it. It's like they're trying to sort of win a trophy.
Yeah,
that's essentially the central conceit of the film. It's not about shooting down enemy jets. That just sort of happens as an aside, but they're really about winning that Top Gun trophy.
Yeah.
And by the way, at one point in the film, obviously spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I mean, it's been 34 years. It's probably been spoiled already. There is a crash, and Anthony Edwards' Goose dies in the crash because his eject pod or his parachute or something happens, and he doesn't eject properly and dies.
Yeah.
And then at this point, obviously Maverick gets sad because that is sad.
Yeah.
And he quits. And then he's like, randomly later on, they're like, "Oh, well, Maverick, you're on this mission." And I'm like, do they routinely put people who quit on missions? And they don't really. Maybe I missed a bit because I really was struggling to pay attention. Yeah, but like, they just don't actually address it other than the fact he just sort of turns up to actually go on the mission. And like, oh, didn't he quit?
It kind of reminds me of that iconic scene that always happens in every rogue detective story where the detective hands over his badge and goes off and solves the case and then comes back and then the captain kind of says, "I didn't have the heart to turn it in." They could have easily just had a moment like that where it's like, "Yeah, I didn't actually file your resignation letter," or something like that.
It was handled. Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers. Like, not exactly the height of cinematic arts, where the scene where the guy has his signature and he goes, "No, sir," and he rescinds his resignation from the army, and he goes on and fights the bugs. Like, I mean, if you're losing to Starship Troopers, actually, I think Starship Troopers is a great movie.
It's a great movie.
I mean, I wonder what someone like Paul Verhoeven could have done with a film like this. Paul Verhoeven with a film like this in 1986 would have been fucking fascinating.
Oh,
there's a man with a deep,
my ladies and gentlemen.
Tony Scott. I don't know much about him personally, but he had a real hard-on for military hardware. He liked shooting this kind of thing, and was very American. Oh, is he American or is he a Brit? Britain's a Brit, right?
They're Brits. Yeah.
But Tony seemed to really have a hard-on for the American armed forces, where you can see in the film by anyone like Verhoeven, deeply cynical about authority figures.
Yeah.
So, I'm going off topic here, but I'm just sort of thinking my fantasy.
They would have never let him do it because
86 was his. He'd done RoboCop and
it casts authoritarian fuckwads. It's horrible to anyone in power.
But tell you what, RoboCop came out a year after this. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe not, but I mean, Verhoeven got his hands on some big budget shit because his films, for all their subtext, they made money.
That's true.
Not anymore, but back then, he was box office gold there for a little while. But so someone like Verhoeven would have done a bit or something like this. Scott's not interested in. Interesting little subplot. The only I guess somehow one of the I'm thinking what you're saying you didn't like much was they were fairly limited with the amount of stuff they could do with the actual hardware. Corey's saying Iceman was there as the pretty boy, and Maverick was supposedly the best. That was why he was called back. People on my Facebook feed are saying at the moment, well, he may have been the best, but you just don't call people back because after they quit because they're good. But you needed to, you could have. I'm just saying. You were just saying they needed a scene just to explain how that happened, other than him just turning up to graduate and they're going, "Oh my God, here's your mission," and like him turning up after quitting. I mean, maybe again it's my cynical brain, but like, it's like if I quit my job, they take away my access to shit. I can't even log into any of my computers anymore. But I mean, obviously this is '86, less of a problem. But maybe it should have been a scene of him getting like signing some papers to get his pass back for the base. That would have been funny.
Maybe. I think he just drove up on his bike and said like, "Yo, I'm back."
Yeah, we're short of pilots too, so you can just get on the jet. Get in the jet. What I was going to say is that when maybe some of the issues around the aerial combat was they were fairly limited with what they were allowed to do with the jets. So they were only allowed to fire two actual. It's kind of a win. They got to fire two actual missiles for actual jets. So real missiles were shot off real planes for the shoot of his film, but two of them. So they shot them from multiple angles so they could use them for multiple different scenes.
Yeah,
and that probably contributed to it feeling kind of like the same thing over and over again, because it was literally the same thing over and over again, just from different angles. Because, well, you're paying for two missiles.
We've only got two of these. We get the most out of them. We can
get the absolute most out of them, use them as much as possible, which is smart direction from them. But it's really poor. I don't think this film holds up. I don't think I want to see the sequel. I probably will now, just because I'm damn curious about like what the fuck. Will CGI 2020 kill all the effects in a new movie?
Well, the curious thing is, okay, the synopsis. What is known about the sequel for Top Gun Maverick? It sounds like there's still no character progression for Maverick. After more than 30 years of service as one of the Navy's top aviators, Pete Mitchell is where he belongs, pushing the envelope as a courageous test pilot and dodging the advancement in rank that would ground him.
That just sounds dumb.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
obviously, I think Tony Scott at one point was down to direct this. The sequel's been directed by Joseph Kosinski.
Yes,
best known for directing Oblivion, which was pretty good,
and Tron
Legacy, which I haven't seen.
He is a very pretty director. He knows how to make things look good.
Well, that's half of that. Well, at least to be as good as the as Tony was, but
yep.
I don't know, Corey. My friend Corey's asking whether CGI will kill the film. It's certainly going to be tempting, I would imagine, to replace a lot of those very expensive shots they would have shot with real aircraft. And a stuntman died during this film from one of their aircraft.
Yeah. I'm curious about how much CGI there's actually going to be in for Tom Cruise's stuff in the movie, because he is really pushing himself to be his own stuntman and push the envelope. Like, he's fucking signed on to film stuff in space. But he is at a point where, like, he learned how to fly a helicopter for Mission Impossible. I wonder if he is gonna try and... I haven't heard anything. Is he gonna try and pilot a fucking jet? Which I would kind of be interested to watch if that was actually him.
Curious about how a film will convince me that a 57-year-old man is still flying jets. But I mean, I'm curious. I recall, did you watch the SpaceX thing earlier in the week, the SpaceX guys?
No, I didn't.
The guys who were in it weren't string chickens.
Okay.
I reckon they were easily in their 40s.
That's not that old.
Well, I mean, for pilots and shit. I mean, I feel like how old was Neil Armstrong? Neil Armstrong when he walked on the moon we could have been what is? I reckon. How old do you reckon he was?
I have no idea. Hey Google, how old was Neil Armstrong? 38. Okay, Google,
There
stop.
You go. This is why when you watch the Joe Rogan podcast, he has Jamie. He goes, Jamie, get that shit up. Like there's a guy over in the corner.
I could
just
do that,
Google shit.
but Google's right there, so silent.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how old they were, but they weren't. Maybe 57. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's normal for people of that age to still be flying rather expensive aircraft. What do I know about the military? But it will certainly be tempting, I would imagine, to do a lot more stuff with CGI. But you're right, Tom is a big fan of practical special effects.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them, Robert Benkin, this is the SpaceX pilots who flew to the ISS last week. Robert Benkin is 49. So
they're space cowboysing it.
A little bit. And I think these guys actually might have flown the actual. This might not be very interesting. This tells a lot about how exciting Top Gun was.
We are now talking about something else entirely.
Douglas Hurley, the other guy, is 53. So
they're all in their 50s, apparently.
So I'm going to take that back on the Tom Cruise thing. Maybe a 57-year-old being a test pilot isn't so weird. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah.
But the only other thing it was interesting about this film for me was there's a famous scene in a movie called Sleep With Me, starring Eric Stoltz. Memorable only because it's got Quentin Tarantino in it in a very cameo sort of role as a guy at a party, talking about how Top Gun is one of the greatest scripts ever written. I think Quentin is a fan of his film. Yeah. And about the reason why it's one of the greatest scripts ever written is it's a gay film. And the subtext of the film, and Corey, if you're still watching, you might appreciate this, is that it's a struggle about a man's struggle with his own homosexuality. In so much as Iceman and all those guys they're trying to convince him, come over to the gay side. But Kelly McGillis represents his heterosexuality, trying to convince him to stay with his false identity of heterosexuality, whereas he really is actually a closeted gay man. And again, you could see that if the famous volleyball scene, is again almost homoerotic. With all the very, very attractive men with no shirts on, all oiled up and sweaty. But there's no good reason to watch Sleep With Me. You can find the Tarantino clip on YouTube, and it's an interesting little accompaniment to the film. It only goes for about 2 minutes, but it's always one. It always made me think of it because it's we're not even really talking about Top Gun now, but I think what's the guy's name who co-wrote Pulp Fiction with him?
Something Avery.
Roger
Avery, yeah.
They don't get along anymore. They won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, I think, for Pulp Fiction, if I'm not mistaken. And they don't talk anymore because they had a creative falling out. And one of the reasons is Roger Avery said he wrote this speech, the Top Gun is gay speech. It was his property, his thing, and then Quentin just used it in his film without crediting him and stuff. So, but that's nothing to do with Top Gun. But that's about as interesting as Top Gun is you can quickly find something else to talk about.
Yeah, but it does lead us on. We are continuing this kind of chain of things, and obviously we've talked about Tom Cruise in this movie. We're going to go to another Tom Cruise movie. One, was it really only the year before? Legend.
And this is pretty obscure Tom Cruise shit. This is probably Tom Cruise before he became a megastar, right? Was this after Risky Business?
Yeah, it would be.
But I mean, Risky Business is the film that really started to make him a big star.
Yeah.
But I think this is about Risky Business was 83 and Legend was 85.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
But on his way. But this is also the kind of film that you wouldn't probably see him do these days.
I think you would if he was interested in it, because it seems like he's like, I think Mission Impossible movies, whilst generally, being fairly healthy and arguably the most successful franchise at Paramount Pictures at the moment, because they still generally and I hate Mission Impossible 3. But he seems
J.J. Abrams one.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's not a movie. It's 3 episodes, just one after another, and it's like, okay, whatever. It doesn't feel right. But anyway, Tom Cruise seems to just be interested in making movies that he is interested in, like Oblivion.
True. I would never have expected to see him in that Mummy film, and there he was.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's someone who doesn't need to do a movie if he doesn't want to. He's got enough money that if he's not interested, he won't do it. But on the other side of things, he always puts in the fucking effort. Even
there's some people out there, and Shay is one of them, who won't see a film with Tom Cruise in it because he's a bit weird.
Yeah.
I think that's a cop-out. Because to say people out there who say Tom Cruise is a terrible actor, that is not true.
No.
Tom Cruise capable of being a very fine actor. I think if you want to see, go back to the 90s, see Magnolia. I think he was great in Eyes Wide Shut. I thought he was brilliant in that movie. He's capable. Even if you go see his cameo in Tropic Thunder, the guy has range. He's capable of doing stuff. It's just that, as you sort of say, he's so rich, so famous, so powerful in Hollywood that he just gets to pick his roles.
Yeah,
because he can do. If Tom Cruise signs on, it gets greenlit, I imagine.
Yeah. And honestly, who wouldn't want that?
It's possibly the biggest guarantee you can get. Your film's going to make money. Is having Tom Cruise's name on the poster. So because of it, I think that's actually a weakness of his in a sense. He doesn't really take risks anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, physically, yes, he does. Like, with all the stunts and shit that he does. But kind of actually project-wise, no, I don't think so. I mean, like, for example, he's never really tried to do anything quite like Interview with the Vampire after that. And he certainly hasn't done anything like Legend since then. He kind of he went through a bit of a curious phase where he was sampling a few different things, but then it's sort of like, you know what? I know what movies people like to see me in. I know what movies I like making.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably not that different to you and I in a sense. We do the work that we enjoy doing. And he enjoys safe work now. And Corey is saying, I don't go out of my way to watch his movies. It's more about who the person is and his acting skills. See, I'm the opposite of it. Well, to some degree, we've had this conversation before. There are some people in Hollywood who are just creeps. So we had this conversation about Kevin Spacey maybe a couple of years ago after it came out, but he's not the nicest person in the world. I find it difficult to watch Kevin Spacey films now, despite the fact I think he's a very, very fine actor at his best.
Yeah.
Short of something like that, short of someone being a garbage human being, potentially he was never convicted of anything, but short of that, I mean, at the end of the day, Tom Cruise, he's a bit weird. He jumped on a couch.
Yeah, he's a Scientologist, but
I don't like Scientology either, but he's a bit weird. He's a bit of a, short. I don't understand what people think is so bad about it. It's not like he locked his wife away for a year or something like that. Or there's always bizarre rumors about his relationships, but I don't get what it is about him that makes people think he's a bad person. He's a bit weird. That's fine.
Yeah,
I don't think you can be that famous and not be a bit odd. From what I hear, the guy's actually a decent human being.
Yeah, at premieres for all of his movies, he doesn't go into the movie. He just spends the whole time just signing autographs, photos, all that stuff for fans. And he gets pissed off if people try and kind of get in the way of that. And it's like, well, that's fair. He's trying to just give back when he can. And
he's not been Me Too'd. Yeah. But he hasn't been like Kevin Spacey, fine actor. He was charged with what he was charged with. I think he got away with it for whatever reason. But there's enough smoke there to make you think there's something funky going on with people like him. So I don't get the whole. I mean, short of something really awful that they're accused of, and that does change my perception of them.
Yeah.
But, short of something like that, I don't understand why people think it's why you choose to go. Oh, I think he's a bit weird. I won't see his movies.
Yeah,
it's fair to say I won't see his movies because they're all a bit samey. And he kind of plays the same character in every single one of them. I'd love to see him. There was once upon a time a rumor that he would be doing a spin-off movie based entirely on his character in Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I would have liked to have seen that. But at the same time, I have a feeling that's based on Harvey Weinstein. So maybe not.
Yeah.
risky. Something like Cruise. He's actually playing like that weird motivational here, or the sort of what do you call it, sort of mouthy doctor that he played kind of really out of his depth in a film like Eyes Wide Shut. Whatever the fuck that movie was, a sex film, erotic thriller.
Was it? Who knows? No one really knows.
I don't know what it was, but I liked it. I know it's fashionably shit in that film, but I liked it. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Tom take some risks. You look at his filmography right now; he's down to do a Mission Impossible sequel, Top Gun sequel, Live Die Repeat sequel, a SpaceX movie, and a heist movie on the moon.
Yeah.
So
none of that is outside of his wheelhouse that he's been in for the last 15, 20 years, really.
Corey says, I feel he's a puppet for Scientology. They wield him in that sense. Couch jumping, slightly weird. That stuff, I don't care. True. I mean, his association with Scientology does make me uncomfortable because I'm not a fan of the church. But, there are a lot of weird dudes out there right now.
Personally, I think that, the association with Scientology, that does rear its head in a couple of things. Like there's Scientology elements in Oblivion, and, he is a vocal advocate for the so-called faith. But, Mission Impossible, The Mummy, he's just all about those movies. And if you find odd things about Scientology in those, you're looking way more.
I suspect I'm reading into your words here, Corey, but maybe it's a little bit more. I've heard this said about him in some other places, and I can see the argument that he wields a massive amount of power inside the church as well.
Yeah,
because he's obviously their highest profile advocate.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of weird shit that happens. Well, allegedly weird stuff that happens inside the Church of Scientology. Yeah. For example, there's the question about where Shelley Miscavige is, David Miscavige, the leader's wife, who hasn't been seen in public for a very long time. And there are people out there who say that Tom Cruise could do more to humanize the faith and, stop the abuses that people say happen in the faith. And I'm not, that's not me, it's in books. Don't sue us. So, I can see that argument to a degree. But should we move on from Mr. Cruise? Because we have some momentous news. We're going to watch Legend next week, directed by Ridley Scott.
Yes.
Fantasy film from 1985. Mia Sara, Tim Curry. I'm just going to say one more thing before we move off Top Gun.
Okay.
This has the most 80s cast that ever 80s ever.
Oh,
Cruise, Val Kilmer, Anthony Edwards, Tom Skerritt, Michael Ironside, Tim Robbins, Meg Ryan, and the guy who plays Strickland in Back to the Future.
Yeah. You know what's really weird is that movie of Top Gun, it was like Val Kilmer's second or third movie, and Tim Robbins doesn't get his name in the main credits.
He's only there for a few minutes. But on the more pressing, more exciting news for people who are watching at home and listening later on, let me take you back to a simple time, time before a Trump presidency. That is the warm and friendlier days of 2016.
Oh, yes.
And those halcyon days of 2016 where we were more innocent and hopeful about the future.
Hope eternal.
Anyone would have ever thought that 2016 would have been considered a more hopeful time. That's divisive. We were more united. We journeyed, I think, down to the Northland Hoyts, and we went with hope in our hearts. We went to, as honest and fair observers of the latest masterpiece from the auteur, I think it's the only way you could describe Mr. Paul Feig, to observe his latest, creation of pure genius and originality and hilarity that was Ghostbusters 2016. A film I think we can fair to say we had been looking forward to with some anticipation for quite some time. The main reason being that, who had claimed that the film would suck and had made outrageous and lamentable predictions that this film would suck to a point where if there's some infinitesimal possibility it got a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, there would be punishment involved for said, potential enigmatic, co-host. And that person may or may not have been me. And somehow
may or may not
only what can be described as black magic and sorcery and bribery. That turd rolled in older, smellier turds, which were made up of digested turds. Got fucking fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it did.
And I think they've stretched the definition of what a fresh film is there, because I think it got under the rating eventually. But that piece of shit had a 74. Audience score of 50 is more in line with my expectations. But anyway, it snuck over the line. And in doing so, I put it on the line, let's say. I put it on the line. I have never seen Grease. You've seen Grease. You've seen Grease 2. I think you actually attended a Grease 2 sing-along at your house. But so the bet was made that if that film got a fresh rating, I would attend a sing-along session of Grease. Now, I may or may not have said the next sing-along session of Grease, but what I really meant was the next sing-along session of Grease I noticed was on. I probably should have set a Google alert. That would have been smart. Now, there was potential, but this was 4 years ago, and people out there are rightly...
This is another way of you stalling your inevitability.
Hey, there were 4 years ago, and people are saying, hang on a second, I've only been listening for a few weeks. Why did it take 4 years?
He broke his leg on purpose.
I don't notice these things. These things aren't on all the time, and I didn't necessarily know when things are on. 2, there was a session at the Astor in August of 2018, and there is a scurrilous rumor that I did break my leg on purpose to avoid going to it because there are no lifts at the Astor and I couldn't get upstairs. There is, and I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to say it to this my character here. That is a half truth. So yes, I did actually offer to do this last year. I said there was a live stage production of Grease, and I said I would go, and he said no. He said that doesn't count. It's got to be a sing-along session.
There is a difference.
Well, yes. Well, see, this is going to work out in my favor. Corey is encouraging me not to go, but I don't welch on my bets.
You're only making me wait 4 years.
Hey, I've tried to find a way to accommodate this bet. It's not up to me to schedule this shit.
I really think that you have pushed the envelope between breaking your leg as well as the coronavirus to get out of this bet. You are a bad man, sir.
Hey. You take your routes that are open to you. Now, I have become aware, you've been aware that actual cinemas have sort of reopened around the place a little bit here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
More importantly, and I don't think they should ever close, drive-ins have reopened in Melbourne. Why they were closed in the first place makes absolutely no sense considering, you are already several meters away from other people and they were open in other countries, but... Them is the breaks. They were closed. They are now reopened. And one of the interesting angles we talked about this last week is that a lot of cinemas who are reopening don't have a lot of product.
Yep.
Because all the big Hollywood shit's been pushed back because cinemas can't open for a while. So they are playing some old favourites. And I have now determined the Luna Drive-In in Dandenong is playing the sing-along version of Grease pretty much every night, which is a torture, but I'm pretty sure is outlawed under the Geneva Convention, but they're getting away with it somehow. So I will plan at this stage, this weekend, I will be attending the Luna Drive-In to actually attend the sing-along version of Grease. Now, I am not going to do this again after this because I avoided this film for 42 years. But there are people out there who may be going, hey, it's in a car. You could potentially turn the radio off and listen to Slayer. I did think about that. However,
don't you dare.
However, I will not be going alone. I will have an impartial observer in the car with me at all times, who is very, let me repeat, very fucking excited that sing-along session of Grease is happening and that I'm being subjected to it for the first time. So
I would like to put an extra thing on this, considering I've had to wait so long to sup on this delicious ambrosia that is being served to me finally. There have to be a few live.
Oh, there'll be videos. There will be. I do not want people coming. It's Karen. My friend Karen is saying it didn't happen unless there is a live stream. There will be some videos and photos. I promise. I do not want people to doubt my commitment to this cause and to think that maybe I took my headphones instead and went and sat and watched Spider-Man on the cinema next door. So Flyway, so a much better film. Yeah. So I could do that, but no, there will be in the photos that potentially videos. Corey is saying whiskey or Valium. Why not both?
No, you must be clear-minded.
Clear-minded, no, that does. I say this operates under the G&T podcast film challenge rules, which meant self-medication was allowed. But I may have to drive at some point. Actually, I may not. So potentially, if I could get a slab. I may never forget, and they never remember the film actually happened. That's happened before. Occasionally, I'll look at a film and I'll be like, this looks awfully familiar. Or I'll see something pop up in my Facebook memories going, I watched Marmaduke the movie. That was a Marmaduke the movie. Yeah, so that the finality of the final sting in the tail from Ghostbusters 2016 lands on me this weekend, and there will be videos. I will send them to my glorious co-host who will share them, I imagine, on the Fried Brain Productions Facebook page. I'll put them on my page as well, so
they will be everywhere.
That I did sit through that giant turd of a movie that is surely it can't be bad as Ghostbusters. Could it be as bad as Ghostbusters? We will find out.
There's definitely elements in the society stuff that's like, yeah, that just ain't appropriate no more.
Well, it was the 50s.
That's true. That is true.
And the 50s, according to the 70s, that was what it was.
Yes. And it also starred John Travolta.
Yes, I think it's Scientology. But yeah, so that's going to be. I was a bit excited about that. I'm like, finally, I can get this off my fucking. Get this off my back and get this out of the way. Karen says, "Will I sing to a song?" Let's not say we did. That's my response to that. I don't know
we should at least go. Oh well, oh well, oh well.
Apparently, someone once told me there were actions. Do I need a mouth guard to stop my jaw clenching? Potentially. That could be a good thing. That's probably where the alcohol will come in handy, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, please send Travis your mouth guards, not used ones. We're in
mouth guards out for me. I was told at one point there are actions involved, and I don't know any of the actions. So it's do not expect too much. I'm going. That's enough. I am there. I will sit through this piece of shit. You don't need to freaking put salt into the wounds, all right? I mean, Blues Brothers would just be over there. One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, and
I'll be watching Grease.
No, you cannot have a secret wireless headphone in one side listening to Blues Brothers.
I would be like, shake a tail feather. Oh shit! It's a sing-along. The words will be on the screen. That doesn't help my case. I will not be singing.
I think once this is finally complete, I think we should start our new challenges again.
we can go back. So for those who don't remember, who didn't listen, we had a it could be difficult. We had a section on the podcast where we called the film challenge, or challenge mode, I think it was actually. And we would pick a random sporting event every week we knew nothing about, which wasn't hard. And we would make a bet over who would flip a coin, and we would bet about who would win the sporting event. And whoever lost said sporting event would have to pick from an envelope, which involved watching a fairly average movie.
Yes.
George had to sit through, I think, epic movie and disaster movie and superhero movie. Grease 2.
Yep.
I recall Grease 2. I sat through both Dirty Dancing films.
Yep.
Marmaduke the movie.
We've watched some trash.
Montana the movie. And of course, if you won, one of my favorite parts, of course, was if you won, you had to spin the wheel of Heigl. And that involved, I think I only ever did that once. I think I had to watch a Katherine Heigl movie.
Yeah.
I told somebody about that once and like, what's wrong with Katherine Heigl? And I'm like,
I don't want to know you anymore.
Pretty much, yeah. I think we had the Pauly Shore version, the to watch Biodome. As a result of that.
We watched Encino Man as well.
But yes, there was some god awful Justin the Kelly. We watched from Justin the Kelly, at least I did. The American Idol movie.
Well,
I mean, surely there's some new crap out that, surely the ace in the hole will be watching Ghostbusters 2016 again. Let me just finish that story and say, after watching that movie, George and I sat in the back row of the Hoyts in Northland, and we just sort of looked at each other, and George just said to me the infamous words that have stuck with me ever since. He said, well, that happened. And I felt better about that because we do disagree on a lot of films. We argued non-stop about from Batman versus Superman for years now, but I was very glad we were on the same page about that.
I think the only other movie that we've both totally agreed on as soon as we come out of it was the remake of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Yeah.
No, I think we agreed on Alien Covenant when I said it was the Force Awakens for the Alien universe.
Gives us a good segue because Ridley Scott, who we're obviously going to be watching Legend next week, he wants to come back and do a xenomorph-focused alien movie following on from Prometheus and Covenant, and I just want to tell him, no, stop, you've killed it, let it go.
Pretty much. I mean, I was talking to someone about it today on Facebook, and I said, the only thing I think I would be interested in seeing from the alien, someone said, I think a TV show might work. The only thing I would be interested in seeing right now from the Alien universe would be if someone drove a dump truck full of money up to Neil Blomkamp's house and said, would you?
Yes.
If they resurrected that project and got Ridley Scott as far away from it as humanly possible, he's had his turn.
Yep.
1 out of 3 is not good. I mean, it's the important one. It was the one that started it. But I want to see, remember the Neil Blomkamp thing, the Neil Blomkamp Alien reboot thing he was working on sounded really interesting. And I haven't seen anything from Neil in a while. I think it was probably that Matt Damon film.
He has been doing, he started like a short film.
That's right.
Thing, and they're fucking awesome. They're really fucking cool.
I think he's got anybody who saw District 9 knows he has a lot of ability. I know people didn't like Chappie and Elysium. I thought they were fine. And maybe not as good as District 9, but then again, he doesn't strike twice very often.
Yeah.
I would like to see what Neil does with that.
Yeah.
So people are still, on my Facebook feed, are still very, very excited that I'm seeing this film, where people have been looking forward to this for almost as long as you. I have no idea. Karen says, if I see any glimpse of him enjoying the film, I would never let it down. I once admitted to tapping my foot for one song during The Greatest Showman, and I haven't lived that thing down. People say I like that. That is not a good movie, but some of the songs are catchy.
After you've done this, there will be T-shirts saying Travis finally saw Grease.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to make sense to anybody except us.
Doesn't matter.
There are things you do, like I was dating a girl once a couple of years ago, and I sat through a Harry Potter film for her, and it wasn't even a good one, right? It was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and that's not good. So the things I do for other people make them happy. Ridley's come out and he said he's interested in doing other films. I don't want to see them. Speaking of films, things that are of questionable quality. I this week checked out a new Netflix series that I was pretty excited to see, and that is Space Force.
I tried watching some of this too.
Well, I've watched the first 2 episodes.
Me too.
And it's fair to say I'm disappointed.
Agreed.
I saw the trailers, and I thought it looked really funny. Corey's saying she'll buy the T-shirt with the date on the back of it. Seriously, what have I done to you people? I saw the trailer for Space Force, and I thought it looked pretty good. It kind of played. I thought I was getting something. I mean, a little bit more like The Office, I guess, in a sense. It was the trailer had it stars Steve Carell as the initial 4-star general who leads the Space Force, the actual of the U.S. created Trump, Lynch, and I saw Dietrich Bader, and I thinking this is going to be more in line with, like, say, a mockumentary, something more in line with like the guys who did Waiting for Guffman, or this is Spinal Tap, or like The Office, where someone like Jane Lynch, you think improv, right? This is just going to be, like people, these incredibly talented comic performers bouncing off each other.
I was expecting something along the lines of kind of Armando Iannucci.
Exactly, Veep. Something like Veep.
Yes.
What I was expecting, yeah. So that's probably a better description than The Office. But The Office is closer to Veep than this is.
Yeah.
And it's actually written by Carell and a guy named Greg Daniels, I think, who I think also worked on The Office.
And Greg Daniels did the Upload.
And that was okay. I thought it was pretty good. But this is nothing like The Office.
Nope.
It's nothing like Veep.
Nope.
It's really not what it was kind of making us think it was going to be when it when it was advertising itself. So as I said, it stars Steve Carell. John Malkovich is in there as well, which is fantastic to see him. He's such a great actor.
Yep.
Other actors you might know, Lisa Kudrow has some stuff in there occasionally.
Yeah.
Fred Willard, his last ever performance, like Fred Willard. It's pretty. It's not terrible. It's just meh. It's not
feels like it's finding its feet. I mean, there's elements of it that are legitimately funny, but then you have stuff that just feels out of place, like him going to his office and singing the Beach Boys. It's like, okay.
But see, that played to me like something he would have improv. Like, that's what I really enjoy about someone like Carell, and I know he works that way. A lot of actors, bigger comic actors, they put a camera in front of him and they go, "Okay, Steve, you're the general. You're having a really fucking bad day. The missile's just blown up. Go."
Yeah,
and they just do work for a few hours or however long doing takes on things. I was sort of thinking that might have. When the trailer made me think that was what that scene was. But when you've seen them shot it from 4 different angles, so it wasn't improv. That was scripted, and it doesn't fit.
I think I've actually watched the 3rd episode, and I think part of the problem is that it is still very much finding its feet in the first 2. And in the 3rd episode, I'm just going to check and make sure it is the 3rd episode. Oh wait, it's the 2nd episode where they have the monkey and the
monkey and the dog.
That shit was funny.
I thought it was awful. It made absolutely no sense with the rest of the show. I was like, oh really? A CGI monkey and a CGI dog?
Oh, when they actually get the monkey doing stuff? No, it was trash. But
I was actually opposite. I was kind of like, maybe it gets a little bit more interesting when they actually get. I'm like, it just didn't. I guess there are two things in there that pull me out of a show. One is the deeply political nature of a show.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of makes sense. As Corey's saying, any show titled from something Trump said, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I think to some degree, it's actually a really wonderful comic opportunity. Like if they had managed to get someone like Armando Iannucci and make it something like this could have been fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But 80% of it feels like it's slapstick. And then the other 20% is political. And you're like, they don't mesh.
Yeah.
The two parts of a show don't fit together.
Yeah.
And so when they get political and they say, they make a joke where it's quite obvious, I just refer to him as POTUS all the time. It's quite obviously aimed at Trump.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, if all the show was this, that would be funny. But as it is, it kind of really grates against the rest of it. The other part of it that makes me not enjoy it is the fact that it's full of CGI junk. Like, they act stupid. Like, he's a 4-star general and spoilers, guys. There's a second episode that consists of him trying to chalk a monkey into fixing a satellite. Obviously, that worked for George, but I mean, it might work for you. But for me, it just felt like, why would a 4-star general be doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Like, for all her Julia Louis-Dreyfus in V, character.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense for. Okay, this is kind of a weird veering off. We've gone to him being stupid enough to try and convince a monkey to fix a satellite. What?
Yeah. The one thing that I really love about the show so far is the chemistry between Steve Carell and John Malkovich.
That's really good. Those two guys work off each other perfectly.
Yeah, they do. I think I would love to see them in something else where they have. I feel like this series kind of has been a rush job to capitalize on Trump's lunacy of going, we're going to start a space force because that just sounds stupid. And we can make a comedy out of that. And they haven't actually put much more thought into it, whether it's style or content. But there's just a scene where Malkovich and Carell are just relaxing on the veranda, having a drink. Brilliant. Really good. Funny, snappy. The characters are both fully realized in those moments. Awesome.
Yeah, you're right. And John Malkovich essentially here plays a straight man, for those who are worried about how Malkovich does comedy. That's kind of how he does do comedy.
Yep.
Against Carell's wacky, stupid sort of character. It does work because those two guys are very fine actors and they work well together.
Yeah. And
Malkovich is first class playing a straight man. But one of the few funny parts of the show for me was when they brainstorming ideas about how to fix a satellite before they get the monkey to fix a satellite. And Steve Carell just writes bomb on a piece of paper and puts it in the suggestion. That's kind of amusing.
Yeah.
And
then the follow-up call from the other admiral or something. So like, did you suggest a bomb? So like, yes, I did.
And we got a subplot involving his daughter, which doesn't really fit, at least in the first 2 episodes.
Yep.
It's wonderful to see Fred Willard again because obviously he passed away so recently, and he does what he does with his scenes wonderfully well.
Yeah.
But again, they don't really need to be there, at least yet.
Yeah.
It's a strange mix. I think George has nailed it by saying it was rushed to try and capitalize on the fact that on everybody, when did he announce Space Force? Like, it couldn't have been, a year ago even. So
maybe
around fast.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix here in Australia.
Yep.
I don't think it's on Netflix in other countries or our friends who are,
where in the world?
Russian bots friends in the States. If you're watching from there, it's on one of the other streaming services there. But I don't know if I'm going to get through all 10 episodes, frankly. I'm going to give it a couple more because it's not unpleasant, but it's not great.
Yeah.
Compared to something like we talked about last week of Upload, maybe you want to watch more.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Upload, it nailed its tone straight away. Everyone was solid, consistent throughout it. Everything about it was consistent. This just feels like, Steve Carell is a funny guy. Let's get him in front of a camera with this funny concept, and surely that'll make gold. Doesn't always work that way.
I think if it had been, I think the nature of a show doesn't fit for that. If they'd gone with something more like, I mean, and maybe he doesn't want to do this because he doesn't want to do typecast, something more like The Office.
Yeah.
Where it's that fake mockumentary, that sort of realistic style of, awkward comedy as opposed to all this slapstick stuff that they're trying to pull up and political stuff here. It might have fit better, I think, the subject matter, because that was kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it's not it.
Even if maybe they had gone, instead of going the Office route, go Curb Your Enthusiasm, that kind of cringe, awkward comedy, and you got like a tiny hint of that in the scene where he is being helicoptered into a place, and the pilot doesn't refer to herself as a space officer or something like that, and he says, there's nothing to be shameful about it. They're like, you almost, you could have, but you didn't.
I wonder if, again, this is written by Steve Carell. I assume he had something to do with the writing of The Office as well. Did you ever get into The Office, the British or the American version?
No, neither. I appreciate all the stuff that Ricky Gervais does, but for some reason I want to just punch him in the face. I don't know why. I feel like if I was to ever work with him or anything, it would be a fantastic experience, and he's why? And I'm sorry, Ricky. You have a face I want to.
Extras was good.
Huh?
Extras was good.
Extras was really good. Yes, I did.
I liked it. I never really got into either I know back about 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the hip show to watch was the British version of The Office. I don't know a lot of people who preferred the American version, but I know it's huge in the US. Americans tend to really enjoy that show because you can't be expected to understand people with British accents. And again, that's one of those shows I'm told got better the longer it went on. Once it sort of found its feet and sort of moved beyond the stuff that they'd bought from, there were 2-3 seasons of a British show, about 7 of the American version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never really, I keep saying I wanted to be more like The Office, but I never actually really watched the American Office a great deal. It never really did it for me.
Just your concept of The Office.
It was kind of, I guess I was just in the mood for something like that, right? But I'm just sort of thinking maybe he doesn't do a lot of writing, is what I'm saying about Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Look at his writing credits. We've got Space Force, Angie Tribeca, a couple episodes of The Office, the 40-year-old virgin, and then we're going back to the Dana Carvey show in 1996.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the weak link here, is it's Carell's the kind of guy who gets shit made now because he's Steve Carell.
Yeah.
And maybe he's a bit like Tom Cruise. It's like he's sitting in a safe space, or he's getting stuff that maybe he shouldn't be doing.
I do feel like there's a lot about the General that is kind of typical Steve Carell. Like, he's a guy who gets easily frustrated and annoyed. He's supposed to be kind of intelligent, but at the same time he makes really stupid mistakes. And it's sort of like, okay, he's a little bit everyman, but not really. Is almost like a satirical parody of an everyman. And it's like, okay, that's fine, but this doesn't necessarily fit every project you're going to make. Yeah.
Yeah, I respect him having a go at it. But I don't think it's quite worked on this occasion.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a second season, though. I'm sure Trump will be presenting comic opportunities for hopefully not a whole lot of time after November, but
I think there will be plenty more comedy based around Trump for many years to come. Maybe not necessarily fresh material, but there's more than enough to.
Once they figure out what the fuck he's actually been doing with his time in office, you guys know he's been doing some shit. Like, like the stuff we've actually heard about, it's got to be like
it's going to be huge.
The fucking iceberg.
It's going to be huge.
And they are wondering who my secret commenter here is. So, people, you can actually watch this on the Fried Brains Facebook page.
Yes.
Which I will endeavor to add as a link if you want to watch.
Go to twitch.tv/thefriedbrain as well as find us live on YouTube. We're everywhere.
We're all over the shop. We use it, and you can see both of us. You don't just have to look at my handsome face. I
would like to segue onto something that I promised the people on Facebook I would talk about, and it is another phenomenal show. It's Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. This is the pseudo sequel to the Penny Dreadful series, which had Josh Hartnett, Eva Green, and Timothy Dalton in it from a few years ago. That was set in London, and it featured like the Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, that kind of era of things all come together, and it was phenomenal. Beautifully shot, wonderfully executed, created by John Logan, and he has now come back. John Logan has created Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, and this is set in LA in 1938, and it is masterful, truly masterful. It is, and particularly poignant for today's politics in the US, where there's people protesting the building of a when there's a very obvious alternative route that can go on. But it starts with the brutal murder of 4 people that are found in the, as they say, the LA River, but it's the viaduct kind of thing, which has got like a trickle of water in it and not what I would qualify as a river. But they're kind of, their faces are kind of been dysmorphed and mutated and dressed up to look like Day of the Dead things. There's a lot of Mexican evidence. As some would say, there's an orgy of evidence suggesting that this was perpetrated by Mexicans. And this whole thing is about, follows 2 detectives, Diego Vega and his partner Luis Michner. And they are trying to solve who killed these people upon a backdrop of politically charged, anyone who knows anything about the late 30s and 40s and 50s of LA, there was a lot of corruption in the police force as well as in the political system within LA. A lot of people being paid off. There's elements and suggestions of Nazi element. One of the characters, one of the few returning actors from the original, Rory Kinnear, he played Frankenstein's monster. He is back playing a German man called Peter Kraft. And he is kind of openly Nazi, and him and other German expats go to LA parks and they start talking, and the psychology of what they're talking about is terrifyingly poignant, because they're talking about, if I see a fight down the street, I'm not going to tell my son to go out and try and break it up and then him come back with a bruised eye. I don't want him to be hurt. So as Americans, we should let everyone else police themselves. We should not police the world, and all sorts of things like that. And he's just connecting it to the Nazi idea. And it's terrifying. It is legitimately terrifying, because they're being left peacefully to protest and freedom of speech, and especially considering everything that's happened in the last 50 years of American history, and especially in the last few weeks, it's really poignant. And then the flip side of the story is these Mexicans who are protesting the bulldozing of their homes, asking logistical questions of, where do we go? Being told by the government, I don't fucking care. You can't go there. Why don't you go home? It's really poignant for today's politics, even though it's set back in 1938, which shows the more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess. But the story is amazing, and I want to give particular props to Natalie Dormer. She is kind of the face of the show, I guess you'd say, much the same way that Eva Green was the face of the first series. And she is pulling quadruple duty in this show. She is this symbol of evil, as well as three people who interplay with the lives of some of the characters in the show, and she has a very good German accent. Well, it's generally very good. Sometimes it does fall into a little bit of the comedic German. It's like, oh yeah, that is super cool, and it's like Germans don't really speak like that. There's a very good American one that she does, and there's a third character I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but she is really taking this opportunity to be in a presentation piece and show off her skills more than just being that really hot woman from Game of Thrones.
And I think she was in Hunger Games, right?
Yes, she was, I think. Yeah.
So this has a 6 on IMDb, as opposed to the 2014 series of an 8.1. Is there something controversial in here? It might be getting it voted down, you think?
Definitely. The politics of this are infinitely more on its sleeve. I think that John Logan has orchestrated and designed this show to be more politically charged. And it is not as good as the original Penny Dreadful series. That is unequivocal. But it is still, for the first 6 episodes, sitting average around about 7.2. I think that's a little hard on the money. Some of the episodes are very slow. Some of the episodes are a little messy because they're juggling a lot of storylines. It feels like the nice element of Penny Dreadful was the fact that it was these separate stories that just consistently got woven together towards the end. Whereas this, I think that's what's going to happen, but it's taking a lot more time to get there because they are putting more focus on the differences of the race and society layers that are happening in LA at that time. It takes more time to actually tell those stories and build those environments, and then before you can suddenly have a Mexican who was in the protests dealing with someone in the highest of society. Those two types of people would, in that time period, would not have merged well. It would have been highly unusual for them to merge and to meet. So you do need to spend more time with that. Whereas London, back in the time period that it was a melding pot of just everything, and to have the rich suddenly have people from the poor side coming in, that was actually kind of common. It was a much smaller area as well, so it just made more sense that things would just come together quicker. This you do need to take with a bit of patience, I would say. But it's really kind of hard to watch because of the political messages within the show. And anyone who I simulated this to Shay the other day and said it's great in the same way that Requiem for a Dream is a great movie, but it's not one that you watch for shits and giggles, and maybe you watch it more than once in your life, but it's going to be like 10 years between viewings or something like that.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
it's a great movie.
It's a phenomenal movie, but this show is really great, and I think it's going to be a really, really top quality, solid series. But it's not one that you enter into lightly. You do have to invest your time and pay attention to it. It's an hour long, a little bit over sometimes for each episode. So it is a time and intellect job. But if it's like a time period that you're interested in, if you like stuff like LA Confidential or games like LA Noire, you're going to really like a huge portion of this show. If you like the supernatural stuff, you're going to like a good portion of this show. I happen to like both of those, so this is a great show for me.
I should note I couldn't stand the last series. I watched one episode and never wanted to watch it again.
And I forgive you for
it is. I think I will be staying away from this one. But I think I do not fall into the any of the demographics you just described. Like I hate fantasy. I generally dislike fantasy. I'm generally not interested in shows about supernatural. I'm guessing if you do like that kind of thing, if you liked the first series, if you liked something like what was that one with all the fairy tale characters in it? Grimm.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, or any of the fantasy shows that Amazon are doing now with the guys from Doctor Who, whose names escape me right now. I feel like this might be more up your alley than someone like me.
No, not at all. It has got supernatural element to it, but it is not the kind of supernatural that you get in Supernatural, the TV show, or Grimm, or anything like that. This is God level.
Yeah, the reviews might disagree with you there, but like I don't. I can just say, is it on Foxtel? Is that where you're watching it?
No, it's on Stan.
Stan. So it's good. It's one of my streaming services I'm paying for. So I should give it a go and see if I like it better than the first season. But I had people recommend the first season to me inside out and backwards for years, and I watched it. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get what's so good about this. But then again, that happens to the best of us. Every now and again, you pick like, I never got Game of Thrones. Everybody listens to their shit about Game of Thrones. It's okay, but not that great. Lots of beautiful people. I would like to visit something we actually hinted at last week, and we're going to veer into territory we don't cover very often in this show, and that is our music reviews. We haven't done a lot of them recently.
No, we haven't.
But we talked. We talked recently about the new Run the Jewels record.
Yes, we did,
and that was released, I believe, today.
Oh, cool.
I think it came out a little early, so I'm not going to blame my co-host for not watching. Any reason I knew it came out today is I had a friend on Facebook who was fucking obsessed with this group who was posting about it all day. So I just want to give you a quick early impression for it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
Not as good as the last one?
For me, no. It's incredibly good timing on their behalf because they are insanely political.
Yeah.
They've got a lot to say. They are not fans of Mr. Donald Trump, Cheeto Hitler, I like to call him. And they had a lot to say about him on their last record. So you can imagine they've got plenty to say this time.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a track on this record like... What was the name of the freaking song off the last one? It was on the Black Panther soundtrack.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, you'll know it when you hear it. Legend Has It is the name of the track. And you know it because it was in the Black Panther trailer when that came out. And there was at least one other song on that record that had a really, really catchy hook. It's a great film clip, too. I'm not doing a very good job of describing it right now because I can't remember the name of the song. There's a bunch of guys in the UN throwing papers and stuff like that. But actually, the whole record is probably worth listening to. Run the Jewels 3 was a very decent hip hop record, and that's high praise coming from me because I don't like hip hop very much. Very, very selective about the kind of hip hop I actually enjoy, and very rarely would I actually sit down and listen to a whole entire record of hip hop. Like I really liked "Humble" by that person who had that song, Kendrick Lamar.
Oh yeah,
that was a catchy song, and I remember I thought that's catchy. I listened to the whole album on Spotify. It's terrible. I couldn't get through it. I hated it. So it's really rare for me to actually sit through an entire record of hip hop. And I sat through Run the Jewels 3 many times because I quite enjoyed it. I think you actually enjoyed it too, yes?
Yeah. I think I listened to it 3 times in the space of 2 weeks.
That's very good for George.
Yeah.
I might listen to a record 3 times in the space of the afternoon. But I listened to Run the Jewels 4 this afternoon, and definitely is the kind of record I think that needs a number of listens, and it needs to be closer attention paid to it than I was paying to it this afternoon, in the sense that I was trying to work and listen at the same time.
Okay.
And I think they're a kind of artist whose lyrics require some attention. And I didn't really have my full attention on, so I'll give it another listen as well. But my early impression is there's nothing on this record that is as catchy or as earwormy as Legend Has It from the last record. I didn't feel like what I enjoy about hip hop is when it's kind of really funky.
Yeah.
I didn't think there were any of the songs that really felt as funky or as memorable as on this record at all. It kind of felt like they'd focus more on the politics and the music this time.
Okay.
That's my opinion. It's getting fantastic reviews around the place. From Rolling Stone gave it 4 stars. Yes, they still print Rolling Stone. They still email me and go, subscribe. And I'm like, yeah, nah. But yeah, it's worth having a listen to because I think they earned it after their last record. And considering what's happened in the last few weeks, it's incredibly timely.
Yeah.
And newsworthy to sort of artists who have something to say like they do. I guess if you think Trump's doing a fucking great job, then get off our stream. We don't need you.
Yeah.
Except for our Russian bots. You can stay.
They have no choice. They've been paid well.
Your programming's your programming. But anybody else if you do like, I think he's a fantastic leader. You're Run the Jewels fan, I would imagine. You're probably they don't have very much that's nice to say about him.
No.
They didn't last time, and they don't this time. Believe it or not, their opinion of a man hasn't improved in the last couple of years. I know it's remarkable, considering all the major wins he's had over that time period. But yeah, so I guess if you're not a fan of politics in the music, if you're not a fan of Donald, if you're not a fan of Trump haters, and this is probably not going to be a record for you. If you do like hip hop, you're probably all fucking over it, and more than I am, and you're probably loving it. I thought it was okay.
Okay. I'll have a listen to it and get on that.
I don't know if we actually did it for the show, but I'd like to encourage you, if you're going to have a listen, we're talking things that are very topical right now, considering what's happening in the world. The other sort of thing that's been in my mind this week, speaking of topical records, is a body count record from 2 years ago, which is actually one of my favorites. It's called Bloodlust. There is a new body count record that's been released since then, called Carnivore. It's good, but not as good. Anyway, if you have time, I don't know if you get a chance to listen to music terribly often while you're doing your thing out there, and the people at home, strongly recommend, if you like loud music, if you like good music, Bloodlust by Body Count 2017.
Okay.
Has a great song called No Lives Matter. It's interesting to hear Ice-T's take on it because he's been talking about this for a long time.
Okay, fair enough. Interesting. I'll have a listen to Run the Jewels 4 and Bloodlust.
And I think it's interesting. You'll get two very different musical styles, but talking about a lot of the same things.
Now, the last thing that I would like to quickly talk about is Halloween, the movie.
The movie or the event?
The movie, to be perfectly clear. In specifics, the 2018.
This is not the Rob Zombie one.
Huh?
This is not the Rob Zombie reboot.
No. This is by David Gordon Green, who slowly making a bit of a name for himself with some interesting choices of movies that he's created. 1 second while I just get to the...
I've never heard of any of his shit.
David Gordon Green.
Oh, Mythic Quest. Ugh, that wasn't good.
He kind of got in with Eastbound and Down, and Joe back in 2013 got quite a lot of buzz as...
Yeah, I recall that. Pineapple Express going back to 2008.
Yeah. He did Your Highness and Pineapple Express as well. So he's definitely seems to have more of his lineage in comedy, but this is a very faithful modernization of Halloween. It is not a remake. It is not a reboot in any way. You've got Jamie Lee Curtis coming back, reprising her role as Laurie Strode. And it definitely continues the story on. What I like about it is that, you know, stuff like we've talked about ad nauseum at this point with, like, why is that character a woman? Why are they making that character a woman? Just give them agency, and then it'll be good. And Laurie Strode as a character, she was obviously the babysitter in the original movies, and they got referred to as the babysitter murders. And so obviously, particularly back in the 60s and 70s, it was kind of unusual or not the norm to have a male babysitter. It was, you know, generally considered safer to have a girl babysitter or whatever. And so that makes sense. But what they have done with the character of Laurie Strode in this movie is basically made her as broken as possible, in that she is perpetually tormented by the fact that Michael Myers has consistently come back for her all this time. And she has spent all this time, she's isolated, she lost her family, and they're kind of on loose talking terms, but it's certainly not particularly amicable. And everyone is kind of trying to explain to her that it's over. He is in prison. He is going to be moved on to another area, and blah, blah, blah. And the whole story, it's just this of these coming together. And there's a lot of stuff in this movie that is quintessential modern day slasher movie dross. Of no, why the fuck would you do that? You're doing that just so that you can get to this. Oh, yep, there's that jump scare I was expecting. There's a lot of it that's not interesting, but the relationship that they have between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers in this movie is actually very good. I think that they are making a mistake having a sequel, because I don't feel like I need to have a sequel, and apparently there's a third one already in the go, because hey, why make one movie when you can make 3 before you've even found out if you've got a success on the first one? But I you know, whatever. It was great to see Jamie Lee Curtis in movies, and particularly one that generally gained quite a lot of praise, and it's sitting 6.6 and 67 for Metascore. She is fantastic. She's always been great. She knows how to command the scene. Judy Greer is in this, and it's kind of a waste of talent. She's a very good actress, but she's not really given much to do, in the similar way that she's in the Ant-Man movies, but it doesn't really make any difference. But yeah, I just figured it was worth making a little note of this, because I'd say it's just on the cusp of that, remake topia that Hollywood is. This isn't that. It's honoring what's gone before and actually using all of that previous knowledge and previous history to inform the characters that they're showing. And they show us really strong female characters that are compelling, that are interesting in this horrific environment. That's all I kind of really wanted to point out on my.
Is there any reason why you'd watch this and not the original?
It looks prettier. Literally the filming of Halloween, it was not given a huge budget, so even comparing it to films of the time, it didn't look quite as good, and the effects weren't as good. It does look good. It is very well edited. It is very well controlled overall, so it is just easier on the eyes. It is easier to consume and not kind of go, oh yeah, I kind of need to be a little bit drunk to watch this. But overall, yeah.
I have never seen the original.
No?
Never seen it.
Mm.
I should see this. I'm such a fan of John Carpenter.
This isn't John Carpenter.
And the original was, so I don't give a shit about the remake.
Yeah.
Why would I watch the remake?
No
reason to watch the remake at all. No reason whatsoever. If you like Halloween films, why would you watch the remake? Why would you watch that? This is not the second reboot, right?
Yeah. Well, as I say, they rebooted it with Rob Zombie, and Rob Zombie makes a very specific movie. This is a continuation.
So is this a sequel?
Yeah.
It's a sequel. So, yeah. I mean, I feel like it would be foolish to start with the 2018 version if you've never seen the 1978 version.
I don't think you're really gonna miss much because this is not a movie franchise based on nuance.
No, but I mean, at the same time, I feel like people who saw Blade Runner 2049, that would be a weird place to start.
Yeah.
It's even if you like, why would you? Because if you've never seen the original, you really would have no fondness for these characters, the story, or anything, right? Like, I have no context about the fact, except for the guy wearing a Captain Kirk mask that's painted white, goes around and stabs people. That's what it was. Michael Myers' mask was a Captain Kirk mask.
Yes, it was.
I should see. I will go see if I can find a copy, and I'll see if I can watch it this week, if I have time. To check out one of the all-time horror classics.
Mm-hmm.
I was more of a Friday the 13th man myself.
There is definitely something in the power of the music, like that. The classic Halloween piano moment, the theme song for this, that din 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 din. It's so simple, but it is creepy, and it does the job so well. I feel like that is a lost art, my friends.
Well, that's been one of John Carpenter's strong points, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you go back and you see something like, I think he's probably one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. See something like Escape from New York, that soundtrack, or The Thing. It's it's not quite as memorable, I would say, to me as something like Escape from New York. But again, it's there as a musician himself. It seems to help.
Yeah, he knows exactly what tone he wants from the movie and from the music, and it always matches up very, very well. His independent music stuff that he's made is actually really cool as well.
I would love to have seen. I mean, he's been to Melbourne at least twice, I think, but it was very expensive.
Yeah.
To play, and I was sort of hoping. Same with Hans Zimmer. When Hans Zimmer came to Melbourne, I was really hoping it would be like half-price tickets for the shit seats that were left. In the lead up to the show, but it never happened, and I wasn't paying $160 to see Hans Zimmer play the theme from Inception. Cool, Hans, great tool. That said, right now I would pay $160 to see just about any gig. Michael Bublé, fuck yeah.
Nickelback.
Oh, hang on a second. I may be going, but there's some things I just won't do. I certainly wouldn't.
Called out. Go and see Matchbox 20.
Well, at least it's not Nickelback.
Was there anything else?
I certainly wouldn't willingly attend two Nickelback concerts like somebody I know.
Hey, free tickets, baby! And because of that, I got to see the Manic Street Preachers live.
That's a win.
Yes. It's definitely a win.
I think, from the sounds of it, do we have anything else we want to cover this week?
Well, the last thing that I watched of any remote note, I decided to watch Ghost. Yep. The
Swayze film?
Yeah, the Patrick Swayze movie. And
must have been bored.
You know what? Whoopi Goldberg's wonderful in it. And the idea...
Well, she won an Academy Award for it.
Yeah, the concept of the whole thing is actually kind of cool. And this is a movie where I think, all right, this kind of level of movie and the ideas that they're playing with, of that supernatural element kind of playing alongside, and that thriller that this is trying to be, that's the kind of stuff that I'd be okay. Yeah, all right, you want to do a remake of that? Sure, cool. That could be interesting with the new special effects of the difference between the angels and the devils coming up. It could look kind of cool. And if they actually just went, you know what, we're going to go fucking full-on thriller section. This is scary shit. It could be really good. It could be a really cool concept.
It would be a difficult thing. It's about film. Interesting. This is directed by Jerry Zucker.
Yeah.
Best known for films like Airplane and Top Secret. So
yeah,
a comedy director. You can tell because there is a strong comedic tone through Whoopi Goldberg's character in the film. But, geez, it'd be a fraught thing to try and remake. This is such an iconic movie. You've seen the pottery scene.
Well, that's the thing, right? The pottery scene. If you go to anyone and ask them to describe the pottery scene, what that entails, they're going to say, "Oh, it's the sex scene." It is not at all. It is that is what's come through from kind of pop culture referencing, parodying, and things like that. They're literally she's teaching him how to do pottery, and they start kissing, and then it's all foreplay. It's all pre-sex. They cut away before the sex at all happens, and Patrick Swayze is the only one that gets his top off. It's like, I was so shocked when I watched it because I was like, "No, this is the sex scene. This is where they have sex." Nope, it's just like you never.
Have you seen it before?
Huh?
You have seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen this before?
I was just like the knife in Psycho in the shower. You never actually see it go into the body. I just kind of merged it all together. So like, yeah, they're doing the pottery, kissing, and then it's just sex straight away. Nope. It's all just them showing how intimate and in love they are and how delicate they care for each other. And then they cut away before the sex. And they're like, "Oh. Huh."
You know, this film has been remade.
Really?
Remake in 2010.
Yes.
That would be weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I recall this film fondly, not as odious as a rom-com as many can be, right? Like, I mean, I think this is the very definition of a chick flick. But I remember, I think its real strong point is the fact that is Whoopi Goldberg's character in there to really lighten it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a pretty heavy story in there. You know, her husband gets murdered, and you know he's trying to track down killers from the afterlife and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, people forget because Whoopi Goldberg, I guess, now is probably best known as a talk show host, really. Yeah. A reality star, kind of whatever it is she does on The View. People forget she was a very talented performer.
Yeah.
Comedian once upon a time. Doesn't do much like that anymore. I mean, she's going to pop up in the new season but people forget that she was a very talented actress once upon a time.
Yeah. The Color Purple, fantastic.
I think this is the high point of her career. I mean, yeah, this is exactly what you're 100% right. This is the kind of thing they would remake.
Yeah.
It's got a built-in brand. It's got that famous iconic scene, which you can put in the trailer and people will be like, "Oh, I remember that." It's got the song, Righteous Melody.
Yeah.
Unchained Melody, sorry, by the Righteous Brothers.
Yep.
It's got all the bits and pieces. You just need a good-looking couple who can pretend they know how to act to stick at the center of it. Maybe Paul Feig will direct it.
Always getting that low blow in. Unbelievable.
Maybe we could recast them both as women. But, you know, people, you know, like, that would be really progressive, wouldn't it?
Dude, don't go there. Just don't go there.
Look, I mean, that would be an interesting angle on it, wouldn't it? I don't know if that would really make I think that would really be progressive, right? Like, that would be really progressive if you had a gay couple at the center of a major romantic comedy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be a way of really showing how woke you are.
My point of it being that kind of caliber of movie, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's got its own fan base, but it's a long time divorced from anyone kind of really getting to that again, and there's fresh takes that you could have on it. That's like, all right, yeah, let's do this. I had the thought. Because Shay and I watched The Three Musketeers, the Oliver Platt, Kiefer Sutherland version, and
yeah,
you know, it made me suddenly think of like the Alexandre Dumas stuff, like The Scarlet Pimpernel, I don't think he actually wrote that, but that would be one of them. But The Man in the Iron Mask, The Count of Monte Cristo, they did modern retellings of that. The Count of Monte Cristo in particular, where, instead of someone being kept in prison for years and then coming back and seeking revenge and then ultimately kind of becoming his own villain sort of thing, they could do something like that almost along the lines of the Me Too movement, where someone was ostracized by that and they go away and then they plan their revenge where they've been wrongly accused of it or something like that. And sort of like the means for justice and the ramifications of that. I feel like that would be really quite compelling. Really kind of cool.
Facebook jail for posting too much truth, and they actually fact checked it, or no, Twitter jail. They get their tweets fact checked, completely unfairly by this giant corporation, and no one can read their tweets for a whole 10 years. And then they're released from Twitter jail, and then they can start tweeting again. Fishing rights itself.
Yeah, we have
a poor
on this show.
World leader has their tweets fact checked. And was released from Twitter jail to wreak revenge on the evildoers. It does work well. Yeah. I've never read any of his books. I think I would.
In particular, good shout out for Alexandre Dumas, a Black Frenchman, way back when, doing some awesome.
Well, there you go. You don't know. He died in 1870, so I think he's probably not going to get the message, but maybe if he knows somebody a little bit like Demi Moore, it could be all right.
On that persona, I think we've run out of shit to talk about this week.
Yeah, when we start talking about Demi Moore and that famous crossover between Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze, and Alexander Dumas. It's time to call tonight. I think we've had Corey. My friend Corey might have been watching a long time. If you're still watching, Corey, thank you very much. People who are out there listening later, thank you very much.
Yes, I forgot to post last week's show on podcasts. I will do that tomorrow, and then this one will go up Tuesday next week.
Next week we will talk about Legend, the Ridley Scott, Tom Cruise fantasy thing from the 80s.
Yes,
I will try and get around to watching Halloween, and I want this man to talk about Midnight Gospel.
Oh, yes, I have watched a little bit more of that, but I will talk about that next week.
We need some time to process that shit. So I will be interested to hear what he thinks of Midnight Gospel.
Yes. On that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.